Welcome to the final Squonk Monster class. Are you ready to get monstrous? Well, if so, you have come to the right place. Oh, after all of this time talking about this poor, sad, elusive creature, I think it is time we make a switch. For how can any creature, how can anyone have but one emotion the entire time? How is that possible? So let us imagine today that the squonk is finally tired of feeling sad for itself, tired of running from all those who want to chase it and capture it, take its picture. And maybe this monster, this squonk, actually gets angry. And maybe when it gets angry, this monster squonk will grow into a monster. Well, let me show you a trick on how to make your monsters grow. I call this the H trick. Ready? So you're familiar with the letter H, right? Very much like this. Like that? Well, we're going to take that same H, but we're going to sort of spread the H sort of wide, like this. So we'll start at the top, and we'll go wide, like that. And we'll start at the top, and we'll go wide, like that. And then we will put the line somewhere in here. And what this is going to do, this is going to create a sense of perspective. So we're going to fit the squonk inside of this H. See, whenever you look at anything, perspective is kind of a natural thing. Like if I point this marker at you, the front of it looks a lot larger than the back. Or if my hand goes your way, now it is as if I have a giant hand and a little hand. So this H helps to mimic that illusion. So within that H, we create our squonk. And we go right back to the old understructure. This time, instead of walking on all fours, how about we make the squonk stand up and really get monstrous? So there we go. Almost looks like we're building a snowman, right? So it's just like before, only now we're fitting it mostly within the H. Okay, so, and we make as we go down the H, we make these circles noticeably larger and larger. Okay, and that will really, really play with how big this squonk really is. Okay, so create the understructure for the arms. Remember the cylinders. Remember that. And spot for the legs. Although, I think the way we're creating this, these legs may not quite show up. Well, they can show up a little bit. I'll show you what I mean. So, here's another thing. Where this line is sort of like the midway point, even though it's further up than that. Anything above the line, you'll have sort of pointing up. So the eye line will be going up. The sort of chin area will be going up, even though it is very droopy. Okay? And then anything going down or below the line will be sort of going down. Okay? Like that. All right, and the further down it goes, the more downward facing these things are, okay? So, let's see. This could be a little circles for where the hands will be. All right, and then, let's see. Let's make those eyes, but let's make them a little angrier than they were before. And bring out that nose. And we could go ahead and make the ears longer. How about that? We're just going to exaggerate everything. That is really what it comes down to. When you want to make a monster, you take what you see and you exaggerate it. Make it bigger or smaller or just stranger. Okay? So, I'm going to go ahead and start adding some of the wrinkles. I'm going to start on top. Actually, I'm going to start with this little nose here. And here, I'm going to use the tip of my marker to try to get some lighter lines. You see that? So stay light when you're at the top. Oh, I'm going to add those brows. Those brows are going to look pretty wild. And you don't have to add too much on the top because remember now you really cannot see the top of the squonk's head because it is above the line. Okay? So under the cheeks, underneath the eyes, are sort of going upwards. And those big cheeks there. And those big cheeks there. And now we actually can see more of underneath the squonk's mouth. Remember, I always drew it sort of straightforward or down, so you could not always see that. Well, now you get the full view. And add those wrinkles. There we go. There we go. And just keep going. And then you wrap some wrinkles around where the arms are. There we go. And then where the hands are in accordance to the line, they're about even to eye level there. Let's see. This one's actually pointing up a little bit, so I'm going to play with that and have it going up, up, up. So again, just using those simple U's, you can create these little hands. Here we go. Go ahead and keep creating those wrinkles. And then I like to give it a nice big belly all the way down. Actually, I'm going to stop right around when we get to the legs, and I'm going to tell you why in a little bit here. Because, okay, so you can draw a monster and you can say, okay, this is a giant monster, but how do we really know that this monster is being a giant monster? Well, there's really only one way to know, and that is, I mean, if you're not seeing it right in front of you, of course, the best way is to put it with something that makes it look large. And the squonk is known for being seen in a forest, not so much a city. Normally, with a giant monster, you would put it against some buildings. But since we're in the forest, we add some trees. And the trees are quite simple. Just do some simple sort of upside down U's like that and make them squiggly. Okay? And you can layer them a little bit. Just layer those trees. Okay? And then you can go even further in front and create more trees. The further in front you go, the trees can actually get bigger because they're closer to you. You can darken those a little bit if you'd like. Okay. So, and you don't even need to draw necessarily the trunks of the trees or anything now. You're just drawing the tops of the trees, known as the canopy. And that tells you just how big this monster really, really is. Okay, so now that you have the trees down there, you can continue with the squonk itself. Continue with those sort of leg wrinkles. All right, leg wrinkles, leg wrinkles, leg wrinkles. I want to make those lines thicker now. Start using the thick end of the marker if you're using a chisel tip, which is what I prefer to use. Make those even thicker. Thicker wrinkles, thicker lines. There we go. So we have this giant monster squonk on a rampage through the forest, maybe chasing those hunters and trappers back out of the forest. Say, leave me alone. Let me squonk in peace. There we go. And then seal that deal. We'll do some shading down below there. Shade below things to get that sense of heft. Okay. Below where the hands are now. Shade below that. Okay. Start connecting those lines. Yeah. So what would you do if you were walking through a forest and all of a sudden a giant angry squonk came stomping and squonking your way? That would be pretty wild, huh? Would you be scared? How might you feel? Oh, and to really make this monstrous, let's give the squonk what he has not had before, and let's give him some teeth. Simple teeth. There we go. And his head's way up there in the sky. Let's darken that line right there. There we go. Okay. And that's just about our squonk right there. We could probably do a little more shading up there. Shade underneath the chin and under the neck. You can play with it all day long as long as you have time. You can always keep adding things to art. That's the thing about any kind of art. You almost never really finish. You just run out of time or resources, right? So this is your big scary squonk. And of course, you could always take some green and fill in those trees to bring that home even more. The trees, the trees. So these are high. Way above the trees. You imagine seeing any animal that's that big that it stands above the tallest trees? And let's go outside right now and just look at the tallest tree by where you live. Imagine a creature whose knees go up to that tree and it goes beyond. That is some intense monstrousness there, huh? Well, so there we go. That is essentially our squonk. If you keep going, I'm going to go ahead and sign it and say that squonk is finished. What do you think? Before I go, I wanted to give a little bit of context to how I learned about the squonk. So you remember when we began, I talked about how this is a creature of folklore. It is a folk tale. And what is a folk tale but a tale or a story that folk or people tell to each other, and they pass it down from person to person. And that is actually how I found out about the squonk. Years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting a very kind person by the name of Joe Wose. He is a famous illustrator, a cartoonist from Pittsburgh. And during an interview I got to do with him, he told me that his favorite monster of all time was the squonk. And he told me all about it. And that was the first time I'd ever heard it. And I was intrigued. So I kept that story with me until I was finally able to share it with you today. And he actually has a book, among many others, called Myths and Monsters. It's a maze book, but it's filled with all sorts of monsters of folklore, including a squonk. So you can find that on the internet for sale. And on top of that, there is actually a book called Fearsome Creatures of the Lumberwoods. It actually is a revised version of a long, formerly published book from 1910 by William T. Cox. But the more current version, Fearsome Creatures of the Lumberwoods by Hal Johnson, is actually available in the Center County Library. I checked myself. So when you are done with this video, you can click over just a few pages and you can actually request that book right here. How great is that? Although you might want to do it quickly if many of you are listening, so you get your chance. If you do miss out, I do not want you to become a squonk yourself. But I just wanted to thank you for drawing with me, for learning with me, for enjoying the tales and folk tales and squawk tales with me. So, until next time, stay monstrous. Ah!